Have an in-depth discussion on cultural appropriation, and Meredith Lam is the project and program manager for the American Indian Services. So what is considered appropriate for someone who wants to dress up as someone from another culture? Is it appropriate?
Yeah, it's April. First of all, thank you for having us on. I just wanted to introduce myself in my traditional Navajo greeting. That is the tribe I'm from. I'm from the Diné or Navajo tribe. And so talking about cultural appropriation, I know a lot of people can come up to the subject, and a lot of it is because people are just unaware. There's not enough education. Cultural appropriation and what it means is taking a particular aspect of a culture, and in this case, it would be dress and appearance. Taking that aspect from a marginalized culture, meaning a culture that's smaller from the larger society, and not giving it proper credit or respect. That is the definition of cultural appropriation. The reason why this is so harmful is because it reinforces stereotypes, distorts the cultures, and at its core, it really does devalue and dehumanize the culture and the people that are representative of that culture.
And I know that a lot of people don't necessarily know that it is offensive. Some people might be in the dark about that. That's why it's important to bring awareness to this. But if somebody's intent is not malicious, is that still cultural appropriation?
I think that is the whole topic of cultural appropriation. I think people are just unaware. They're not knowing. And so this is why it's important to have these kind of meaningful discussions. You will hear a lot of talk about appropriation versus appreciation. Appropriation is disrespectful, and there are proper ways that we can appreciate a culture, other ways that we can show respect. We can have that through meaningful discussions, learning about the culture itself, getting involved and getting educated by the members of that culture, and having these meaningful discussions. And so when I say meaningful discussion, it's more of listening. I learn so much more when I enter a community that's not of my own, and listen. I think just really listening to the culture and asking the people, how do you want to be represented? How are ways that we can appreciate your culture? And usually that isn't typically dressing up.
Okay, so that begs the question. So if somebody, I know that we're showing pictures of kids as well dressed up, and some Disney characters that they might want to dress up as, what type of tips would you give parents that might need to tell their kids, no, this might not be appropriate, or do you tell kids that?
Well, it doesn't matter the age. I think the question is here, the important question here is, why am I wearing this? Or why is this being represented? What is the purpose? Because for Native American people in particular, and I am a Native American person, and so for me, when we represent ourselves through our traditional wear or regalia, that is usually typically very sacred to us because it's representative of who we are as a people. It's representative of our communities. It honors our members. There's a lot of representation in everything that we wear, and it's very symbolic and very sacred. A lot of people don't know that. And so I think it's important. See, here's a moment where we are educating. When we are wearing regalia as Native people, we're not pretending to be anything. We're not playing. It's really who we are. That's the difference between a costume and really what we wear as regalia or as our traditional wear, as if you call it. And so I wouldn't say it really necessarily matters on the age. It really is the purpose. So the first question to ask is, why am I wearing this? What's the purpose? If it's to pretend or play, most likely it's not going to honor the people who you're trying to represent. I think this goes back to meaningful discussions with the people of that culture. If you're invited to wear that type of regalia or traditional wear, I know in parts of countries like India, when you go to weddings, sometimes people are invited to wear their traditional wear. But with Native American people, there typically isn't a situation where we would invite people to wear our regalia or our traditional wear. Now, wearing pieces of jewelry, that's a whole nother, discussion. In that case, it would just be, we ask that, if you do buy or purchase any kind of Native art piece, make sure that you are supporting the Indigenous and Native American artists who are selling them, rather than something that's made or produced in China.
And moving beyond Halloween, next month is Native American Heritage Month. And could you tell us about some of the things that you have planned next month in November?
Yes. So the wonderful thing about what I do, with my job is I'm also an educator. So I work with Provo City School District here in the state of Utah. I grew up in Arizona, so it's really interesting. And I think in Arizona, we are pretty good about celebrating because we're so surrounded by Native American culture. And so November, yes, it's National Native American Heritage Month. And with our organization in particular, we are looking to do some events through our social media platforms. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and we also have TikTok. And so TikTok has invited us to do some educational platforms as far as introduction to the culture, who we are as people. As our organization our mission is to serve Native American students and to preserve their cultural heritage. That goes along with language preservation and supporting them through their milestone of going through higher education. Education is where we are all centered in our organization. So we are supporting our Native American students and our Native American community through education and just promoting higher education and obtaining that. We're all about lifelong learning.
And Meredith, that about does it for us. But you mentioned it's important to listen, and we appreciate listening to you and learning more about your culture and heritage. So thank you so much for addressing some important topics and some exciting events coming up next month. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, April. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.